Ladies and gentlemen, very good evening and a warm welcome once again to the Red and Blue Review. My name is Nick Philpott. I'm going to be with you as your host for the next hour. I'm shortly going to be joined by an illustrious panel, including Ian Noble. Good evening, mate.
Good evening, Nick. Good evening, everybody. How are you, mate? You well?
Yeah, very well indeed. Very well indeed. I say illustrious, but I also should have added on some of that. Good evening, Tim Richards. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, Nick. Nice to see everyone.
Right, I'm going to, before I introduce Jim, because I'm going to hand over to Jim in a second, but before I do, Tim, I'm going to say publicly, thank you so much yesterday for the invite up to what was the old Sky TV box on behalf of the Fab team. I think they're doing a great job, and great to meet some of your colleagues, and the invite was very, very welcome. Thank you, mate.
No problem at all.
Jim Canon, Sir Jim. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Happy New Year to one and all.
And to you, mate. And to you. Now, I understand before we kick off, big man, that you got a message for somebody. Is that right?
Yes, I'm hoping that he's watching, and it's an 80th birthday to Dave Usher. So, Dave, on behalf of everyone here, apparently you're well into watching the show, as you should be with a name like Usher. We wish you all a happy birthday, happy 80th birthday. Hope you have a great day.
Yeah, well said, mate. And on behalf of everybody else here, I echo your sentiments. So yesterday was a great great draw against the Chelsea. I thought we played extremely well in the second half, not so well in the first half. Ian's going to be talking us through the game shortly, and we're going to be talking about possible or potential transfers later on in the evening, and people that we've been linked with, the loans that have come back, loans that are likely to come out. Anybody heard about Jeffrey Schlupp today? If not, stay tuned, and you might hear some of it later on as one of my lights as you go on. Ian, over to you, mate.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Once again, so we played Chelsea at home. It's the first time we played a team twice this season. I think I'm right in saying that. Obviously, we drew 1-1 at the Bridge early in the season, and in the pre-match stuff, Oliver Glasner was saying how much we've improved. We're a better side now than we were then. So we didn't fear them at all. Of course, they'd just come off the back of a couple of bad results for them. They'd lost at home to Fulham and away to Ipswich Town, games that they would be expected to win. Let's have a look at the lineup, Nigel, if we can, before we do anything else. So there you go. The lineup is sort of what we expected. No Will Hughes because he picked up an injury in the game against Southampton at home. Henderson in goal, Munoz and Mitchell wing backs, Richards, Lacroix, Gahey, Mark Gahey. He returned for the ineligible Chalobah, couldn't play against his parent club, of course. Lerma and Doucouré gets the nod in midfield in the six in the holding roles, with Sarr, Eze and Mateta up top leading the line. And the bench probably a little bit weaker than we'd normally like to see as well yesterday. Tim Robinson was in charge. Paul Tierney was on VAR. I think we started slowly. I think it's fair to say. You know, we started slowly. When we played Arsenal and we got hammered the other week, we gave them too much respect, and I think there's an element of that yesterday in the first 20 minutes. You know, Chelsea, they responded well to their defeats. I think they started the game very well. And Oliver Glasner said in his post-match stuff that Chelsea took a deserved lead, and I wouldn't argue with that. In 14 minutes, they took the lead. They went 1-0 up in front of the Homestale. Sancho, of course, a great footballer. We forget about some of these players that Chelsea have got in their team. He's got some pedigree, and he turned Richards inside out. Beautiful dummy to send Richards, left him flat-footed really, and he got away on the left-hand side. Plenty of players back, but he found Palmer in some space in the box. And with Cole Palmer, we know how good he is. And he took his chance really well, hits it across Henderson, and little chance for Hendo to save that. Chelsea are 1-up. They have a free kick as well, and that was headed on. And Jackson's at the far post, and I'm waiting for the net to bulge there for 2-0. No doubt about it. How he misses it, he's missed quite a few. He missed a few yesterday. And he's frustrating his fantasy owners, is Nicholas Jackson, but he should have scored then probably. Chelsea were asking us lots and lots of questions. I don't know about you guys, but I was quite relieved that it was only 1-0 after half an hour. Is that the feeling? Was that the feeling in the skybox, Tim? Was that the mood in the skybox? We were lucky to be 1-0 at half an hour.
Yeah, I think so. I think we gave them far too much respect yesterday. We didn't get at them. You look at the way Ipswich played them. The first 10 minutes, they just got right at them. And we just stood off too much, just gave them too much time. So definitely after half an hour, it was still 1-0. I was just like, please, let's get this to half time at 1-0. We got a chance. So definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but we did improve as the first half picked up, Nick, didn't we? We didn't sit back and we grew into the game. I think is probably a good way of putting it.
Somebody asked me in one of our chats is how did the game pan out because they only seen bits of it on the TV, and it really was one of those games of two halves. I hate the cliche, but I do want to go back to something you mentioned earlier on, Ian. You were talking about Richards, and there's been some quite severe comments about him in the chat already, and good evening to each and everybody that's on there now. Chris Thompson, Luke Cooper, Johnny Lyons, I can see you out there, mate. John Knox, Daniel, Steve Jutt, Tom Clark, Sammy, and Jill's out there as well. And Jill made a comment, by the way, boys, there doesn't seem to be much hair on the pod this evening. Okay, there are lots of bald people around. Excuse me, I'll have you know. Oh no, I've still got a full head of hair. Talking about Chris Richards, he didn't have his best game at Palace yesterday, and I didn't think Max Ensie set the world alight yesterday either. I mean, somebody just called him people are very observant, talking about my new glasses. They said he looked like a bit of a dummy when he got turned by Sanchez yesterday. And I think that's a fair point. It is, it made him look quite foolish in actual. In fact, do you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but let's remember that he hasn't played a lot of minutes. He played last week against Southampton, but prior to that, he hasn't played at all, has he, really? And he's been injured as well. So he's easing his way back into it a little bit. And is he more left-footed? And yet he's playing on the right? Am I right in saying that, Jim? I think so.
Well, he tends to play on the left most of the time. But, I mean, you got to remember, the guy in front of him don't actually give him much help. Munoz is brilliant. But sometimes, like at certain points again, that time Sancho done him. Well, he done him about 3 times on the trot.
Yeah,
and he didn't learn, and he kept getting into. I mean, you got to pick your time when you go in and try and win the ball, and he didn't learn after the 1, 2, 3 times it happened. Unfortunately, the first one led to the goal. He's a decent player. I think he's. When I first saw him, I thought, oh, he looks good. But the more I watch now, especially with Lacroix coming in, he's not as good on the ball as you would probably want a centre-half playing in a back three. Because, there's lots of times when you want a little bit more. I mean, Gehi's brilliant at it, threading them balls into the centre-forward through gaps. He's really good. But he's not played a lot of games, is he? I mean, towards the end of last year, we were all raving about him. So I think probably he needs game time to get back into the pace of the Premiership.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Jim, totally. And I think someone said in the chat, I think it was Fergus commented, his second game for a while, give him time. And I'd go with that. I think what it also told me was that Chalobah is probably the better player. If you have a choice, they're both available. I'll probably pick Chalobah. See what you think in the chat. Would you go Chalobah or Richards in that third centre-back spot, given that Gehi and Lacroix will play? Nick, you mentioned that Lacroix didn't have his finest game, and I agree with you there as well. I think, again, he was found wanting a couple of times. He made some good challenges as well. He didn't have a bad game by any stretch, but by his standards, he wasn't,
Well, he said it. You're right.
Jackson got the better of him a couple of times, didn't he? He
set his own level. And the point being is, I think he was a little bit poorer. I mean, I got moaned at in the skybox yesterday, right at the beginning of the game, because I said I was really looking forward to seeing Palmer play, and we know what happened. I think it was after 6 minutes. Yeah, because let's face it, A, he's English, and B, he's a particularly good player. And within 6 minutes, in he goes and puts the ball away. And as we just rightly said,
it's 14 minutes actually, but we'll give it some license there. Yeah, 14 minutes to 1-0.
Go on, Tim.
Just to come back at you, that Nick, you're right. But then, what did he do for the rest of the game?
Exactly
right. That shows how well we improved and how the change that Glasner made in the formation, Chelsea 1 strike on target. And they scored. So,
we'll come to those stats, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well. But let's not forget our best chance to score prior to actually scoring was the Richards header that Sanchez tipped brilliantly over the bar. That was a really good effort on goal. And Jim, you would have been proud of that one yourself, wouldn't you?
Good header and a good save. Yeah,
absolutely. But as I said earlier, listen, we didn't sit back and let Chelsea have all the ball in the first half. We did grow into the game. Lerma, probably one of the best opportunities we had. Lerma, a long cross ball to Munoz from the left to right. Munoz took it down. He's in the penalty area. Jim, you said earlier he's playing offensively very well for us. He pulls the ball back to Mateta on the edge of the box. He's crowded by Chelsea players. He takes it first time. It's just wide. It's literally just wide. That would have been a 1-1. So we're not far away. Eze looked dangerous down the left as well. I thought a couple of times in that first half. Didn't appreciate it when I was watching it live because of where we're sitting, and they're attacking the White Horse Lane end. But Eze, a couple of times, he took the ball out of the sky brilliantly. He really is different gravy at times, and I think he's looking a bit better now. I know, Tim, you don't like him that much, but I'm a big fan, and of course I think he walks on water, Tim, don't I? Eze, I think he's brilliant. But he did look good down the left hand side in the first half. The other chance I mentioned earlier, Jackson did put the ball wide. Palmer, probably the best pass of the game. He threads it through. Jackson then turns it and he hits it with the outside of his right foot, just wide of the goal. Henderson's not saving that if it's on target, I don't think. So, we got away with one. And Tim, you said earlier that, we're hoping that it's only 1-0 at half time. And sure enough, we're going 1-0 down. Anything else that you'd want to add, Tim or Jim, from that first half? Anything I've missed? Maybe any comments that you want to make?
No, I thought they started quite sharp, and for 20 minutes. You look at teams like Chelsea, they're going to have lots of possession on the ball. Our biggest problem, watching it as I do, probably different from other real fans, is I look at the positions and what people do with the ball. Our midfield give the ball away far too much, which just creates a problem for us because suddenly from even 2 or 3 passes, we're ending up all backtracking, trying to defend the ball. And it's a lot of times where it's the final ball and they're trying to thread it through gaps that probably aren't there. So I think if they just kept it a little bit more until there was a bit more space. But I thought we'd done all right. The last 10, 15 minutes of the half, we got better, created a couple of chances. But the keepers never did. Both keepers, I don't even think they had a save to make apart from the header from Richards.
Yeah. That was the main one, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Jackson, you can give him the ball all day long. He needs 10 chances to score a goal. So we were okay Saturday.
Well, Jill just said in the chat, funny enough, the goals could be 6 foot wider, and they still wouldn't have scored with him playing because he's a poor finisher, and I just.
Well, I get the point he's trying to make there, but the answer to that is, of course, in reality, no, because the ball was just wide a couple of times. One in the second half, he screwed it wide, but it wasn't far away at all. Henderson had it covered, but if you look at the angle, if you're looking down, from behind the goal, it's really close. So, and Enzo had one as well that was just fizz wide in the second half. But we started the second half better. We came out, clearly he's adjusted a few things at half time. I thought the Sarr and Munoz combination down the right-hand side was excellent yesterday. Sarr comes in deep to pick the ball up, and he turns and he finds Munoz going wide and he plays him in. And there was the first real chance we had was when he pulls it back for Eze, and he should have done better. He's got to hit the target. He's kicking himself because he's not hit the target there. And I think 8 times out of 10 he does hit the target, but that wasn't one of them. And that was a shame because that would have been a good opportunity for one each. There was an Eze free kick. We talked about this one already, where he floats it in from the right-hand side and Richards gets up for the header. Well saved. Nick, I know you want to talk about this next thing I'm going to say quite a bit, and it'd be interesting to get the other guys' views as well and get your view in the chat. But we're clearing the ball out. It gets, I think it was Jackson lays it, just plays it back, and it was Neto stretches for the ball, and Tyrek Mitchell just gets his foot to it. There we are. We've got a still of it there. So if you're watching on the if you're listening on the podcast, let me just describe this to you. So Mitchell's on the ground here. Neto's going over his leg, is in the penalty area, but the ball's skidded away then, away from our goal. Is it a penalty or is it not a penalty? I think there was a big shout from the Chelsea fan base because it was quite near the away end, but not many players appealed. And referee waved play on. He doesn't give it on the pitch. Presumably it was checked, but penalty or not a penalty for you guys?
My point pre-show was that I saw it live, okay, and it's very difficult because we were up the other end. I think there must have been a VAR check on it. I saw the Match of the Day highlights, and they showed 3 angles of it, okay, and I watched it twice. So I saw the same 3 angles twice, so 6 times I've seen it. And I'm not convinced at any point did Mitchell actually touch the ball. His leg was pretty damn close, I'll give you that. People coming straight back at you in the chat saying, no penalty for me, no, John not saying penalty, Richard saying no penalty, Stephen Dyer saying he's got the ball. Is that conclusive? Is that conclusive? Because I didn't actually see on any of those 3 angles the Match of the Day showed yesterday that he actually touched the ball. He got damn close, I grant you, but did he touch the ball? I'm not so sure. And
well,
if he didn't,
I think he did touch the ball, Nick. This is why it wasn't a penalty. But Tim, he touched the ball, don't you?
Yeah. Now, see, this just shows up the incompetence of the people running VAR, because it wasn't a penalty because I say he got the ball first, and yet in the Arsenal Brighton game, Brighton got given a penalty after the matey headed the ball and then headed the player, which is exactly the same as Mitchell getting the ball then taking the player out. That penalty's given. Chelsea didn't get the penalty in our game, so there you go. There's the inconsistency and incompetence. But for me, he got the ball enough, and especially the way refs seem to have been told to ref games this year, it's, no penalty.
Paul Gear says, Real Panel says, both touched it at the same time. I thought we were a bit lucky. So, if it's at the other end, you're screaming for a pen. You want a penalty if it's at the other end, maybe. But he does touch the ball first, albeit just a tad. And referee's not interested. Plays on. And not a penalty for me, for sure. So,
Jim?
Well, Nick, you answered your own question. If it's not conclusive, he can't give a penalty.
It was cleared because
he can't give a penalty if it's not conclusive.
No. What wasn't conclusive is whether he touched it or not. Okay, the angles I saw.
He still can't give a penalty, can he?
No, probably not. I think we got away with one, if I'm honest with you. Maybe you agree. Stephen Dyer saying it was a great tackle. Your thoughts in the chat, please. We'll read them out as they come through.
We've got a comment here. Lorraine Turner, Mike Dean said Mitchell didn't touch the ball, therefore it was a penalty. Strange. That must have been on Sky, was it? Does he report on Sky in the afternoons? I don't know. I'm always at the game. I don't know what goes on television at 3:00 or beyond on a Saturday afternoon. There we go. Anyway, not given, thankfully. Woo. Still 1-0. Still 1-0. Lots of Chelsea shots off target. We've talked about this already. They had 6 shots in total, 1 on target from which they scored, and Jackson went close a couple of times. Munoz then plays in Mateta, plays him in well. Munoz pops up in the 10 role. He's playing like an inside right half the time, isn't he? Getting forward at every opportunity. Plays in Mateta. Mateta's shot is blocked well. I think it was Sanchez that blocked it. Munoz is again in behind. He steals the ball from Palmer in the middle of the park. Chelsea try and play out from the back. Maybe it's smart. Inwardly on Match of the Day, they criticise them for their lack of game management in as much as they're 1-0 up and they should be, I don't know, finding the corner flags or something. But, they try and play out from the back, plays it into Palmer's feet, and Munoz picks his pocket brilliantly. Plays it into Sarr, who looks up. He finds Eze on the left-hand side. It's a first touch across the box, and Mateta's at the far stick and puts it in. He's still got a little bit to do because he's challenged there by Cucurella, but 1-1 on 82 minutes, and the crowd go wild. Great goal, great team goal. The corner flag gets it in the corner where you are, in the skybox. And you didn't get a picture of that then, Nick, no?
No, I missed that shot by 1 second. But I will ask a question, though, because somebody actually mentioned it. I don't know where I saw this. Was that a cross by Eze? Or I'll tell you what it was. They did a post-match interview with JP after the game and talking about his goal. And he said, the interviewer, who obviously works for Palace himself, was that a misplaced cross or shot from Eze? And yeah, I think it was right to ask the question. It looks as though I thought he'd actually scuffed it. It went across the box, and Eze buried it. Mateta buried it. Tim?
I'd just like to let everyone know that in the executive VIP old skybox, probably about 3 minutes before the goal came, somebody to my right-hand side in a very, very matter-of-fact voice said, I just don't get a feeling we're going to equalise today. And then it happened. So, so there you go.
Listen, Nick, don't buy a lottery ticket, whatever you do. You're not going to win. Great goal, though, wasn't it? I thought it was a great goal. It was a goal that we deserved, given the amount of possession we had and the play we had in that second period. And, I just thought that if anyone's going to go on and win it, it would be us from there. But we did have one other chance. It was a long throw from Lerma, and Nketiah's on the pitch now. He heads it on, and that could have gone anywhere. And then Lacroix had a shot from distance, which was comfortably saved. A couple of other things towards the end of the game that it might be worth just touching on. I thought Enzo Fernandez was a bit fortunate not to get a second yellow. Yeah. There was a challenge, and I think if he's not on a yellow card, he probably gets booked for it, but the referee chooses to ignore it. That was on 86 minutes. And there were two substitutions. We mentioned Nketiah already. And before that, Kamada came on for Doucouré. Doucouré hasn't played a lot of minutes. Were there boos when Kamada came on? I hope there weren't. I know a lot of people aren't happy with him. They're not happy that Glasner selects him. Look, we've got here a Japanese international footballer. Hasn't played much in the Premier League. Has played a lot in Europe, in Germany in particular. And he's a footballer. We know there's a player in there. But I think he's getting a bit of a bad press. I'm not saying he's great or anything like that. But I don't think he did much wrong yesterday when he came on. I think
the Benny would have been more effective in the middle of the park.
Maybe you might know, will you? But, I thought he did okay yesterday. Interested in the chat. What do we think of Kamada? Is he someone worth persevering with, or have we made a real mistake in signing him? I think he's worth persevering with personally. So that's the game, guys. I don't think there's anything else I can say about that game. I'm just relieved that we got a point and we didn't lose it. There we go. 38% possession. Possession means nothing really. Shots fairly even. We have far more on target, 6 on target, so they're 1. Corners are equal. Free kicks are fairly equal. So, good game, good point. You've got to respect the point against some of these teams, even though they've lost their last couple. So I was happy with a draw at the end of the day.
Cool. Thank you, mate, very much indeed. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be touching later on in the show. We're talking about up-and-coming fixtures, but I do need to touch on one in particular that is coming up quite rapidly because we're already, a third of the way through. We're in early January. We've got the Fulham game coming up on the 22nd of February. And Grant Saunders from the Eagles Have Landed Facebook group is launching another trip up and down the Thames on the boat. Yes, it'll be a lot colder. The good news about it, for those of you who went last year, he's gone back from the larger boat back down to the smaller boat, which is A, more enclosed, B, has more bars, and C, has a downside, many more bar staff than the one that we went on last year. So those of you who are interested, this is what he's got to say. Following the first announcement, the boat has already 70% sold already. Respecting it was the festive period, and as it's just before payday, Grant has not promoted it further. However, here we go. This year's boat versus Fulham will set sail from Festival Pier embankment at 9:30 hours. Okay, with the Giraffe Cafe opening its doors solely for us at 8 o'clock that morning for an early morning stomach liner and maybe a little livener because the bar is open for us as well. We end up at Putney Bridge where we travel en masse through the park to Craven Cottage. He's returning to the old boat, which is the MV Royalty, for a fully stocked bar and ready to serve alongside the regular DJs who we play the old favourites and many Palace-themed shoes that we all know and love. Join the 160 like-minded fans on a one-way trip to Fulham and start your day like all match days are supposed to be intended. There will be an on-board raffle that day where you'll have a chance to win a pair of Peter Kay tickets that are dated March, so a few weeks after the game. And there'll also be some other prizes, including some cash prizes. To find out how you get yourself on board, go to the Eagles Have Landed Facebook page, okay, and search using the hashtag CPFC Boat25. That's hashtag CPFC Boat25. This will take you to all the posts about the boat, okay, how you can get yourself on board and the joining instructions on how to pay. So if you've not done the boat before, I have to tell you, it's quite a good day out, okay? Sadly for you guys, it's actually hosted by yours truly, okay? You'll be my gob on the microphone, but if you do come on board, come up and say hello to us, okay? We'd love to, if we haven't met before, come and join us, come and say hello to me on the boat. I'd love to meet you all, and we'll have a good day out. It's a few beers, okay? It's a good laugh, lots of singing, lots of... especially if we come across another group of fans up and down the Thames up that day, it'll be a good day. So come and join us. Go to Grant's Facebook page and find out all the details on there. Right, the other thing. So Palace versus Chelsea, Ian. You wanted to touch on Palace versus Chelsea and the history behind it, I believe.
Well, it was interesting. I do read the matchday programme, and they touched on from the archive yesterday. They picked on 2 games. And our friend Jimmy had played in both of them. So the first was the famous 5th round FA Cup tie. And look at that.
Who's that? Look at the hair. Talking about hair, Jill. Look at that.
What a good looking boy he was. Okay, you can take it down there, Nige. Jim, you didn't know we were going to put that up, did you?
No.
You won't go on again if we do this.
I'm jealous of the hair, that's all.
It's a great haircut, mate. What a mullet. Jim, for those that don't know, you made your debut in this fixture at home to Chelsea in, was it March 73? I know it was 1973.
Yeah.
Malcolm Allison was manager and he gave you your debut, aged just 18. And if we'd had fantasy football then, you would have been a hero because you would have scored 15 points by keeping a clean sheet, scoring a goal as a defender, playing the full 90 minutes and getting 3 bonus points, probably a 15-point haul. That would have been amazing. What can you remember about that occasion, Jim, in March 73?
Oh, I remember a lot about it. It's just the whole thing. I mean, I knew I was in the squad because I was told to report to the game, but I'd been involved, but not sort of to that degree. And he just read the team out, Malcolm, and I was in it. I just didn't expect it, which was probably quite good because you wouldn't be sort of Friday night worrying about playing against sort of.
You didn't have the nerves. That's right.
Who are you marking? Was it Peter Osgood?
Peter Osgood, yeah. Peter Osgood, yeah. Amazing. And the game started. It was quite. I mean, it was different from now. I mean, the pitch was probably March. It was probably it would have been dried out. It wouldn't be muddy. 40,000 people in the stadium. I mean, that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. I got booked early doors. I think I was over exuberant on Osgood. And then the game went on, and I had a good game. I actually had 2 or 3 chances. Keeper made another save from a header that I had. And then I think it was Don Rogers clipped his free kick in. And all I remember is the Osgood, and I think it was John Dempsey. And I can't remember who the keeper was. Would it have been Clemens?
Peter Benetti.
Who was it?
Peter Benetti.
But Benetti, they were all arguing about who was picking me up. But I mean, I got above them all and just headed it in. So yeah,
Fantastic.
and I walked home with my then girlfriend. I didn't even go in the Glazers club because I thought they wouldn't let me in because they didn't know who I was.
Get away. Joking.
I walked home, got the bus back to Fulton Heath, and that was it.
That's, I mean, it's such a different world, isn't it, compared to today? Can you imagine a player getting the bus home?
Well, I got the bus here.
Yeah. Well, it's great, isn't it? And so when the fixture comes up like yesterday, does it evoke special memories? I guess it must do, mustn't it?
Yeah, it's always nice. I mean, it was quite good because we had Jody Morris was in the Spironis. He was actually on my table with one of the lads there, and Stevie Kember was there. And Stevie Kember had said to me, because I said to him, "Do you want to get on the mic?" No, just do your thing. I'll go around and talk to people. And he says, you can mention that when I left Palace, the first time I come back, my debut back against Palace was the game that you scored and won 2-0. So I mentioned that. I thought, well, I might as well let them know that I did play in a winning Palace team against Chelsea. And I don't know if Jody Morris was too impressed with me because I said to him, I introduced them because I normally talk about the Chelsea team before I get to the Palace. And I said, you got two ex-legends here. You got Stevie Kember and you got Jody Morris. And I thought, well, Jody's more sort of late, not as late as Steve. So I said, stand up.
Recent, isn't he?
Yeah, but he wouldn't stand up. So I turned around and said, sorry, you are standing up. And the room sort of went into one laughing, and I went, sorry, Jody, didn't mean that. It does. Anytime I play against them, obviously you think, I remember playing against them. It just seems such a long time ago, that's all.
Yeah, and of course, interesting that Steve Kember was there yesterday because, as you say, he went to signed for Chelsea. Was it directly from Palace?
He left Palace, went to Chelsea, and then
he went to Leicester.
He moved around Leicester. He was out in America playing, then he come back.
Yeah. And then he famously managed us, didn't he, for that Stockport
he did.
game at the end in 2001, which was fantastic. Yeah, so there we go.
Jim, Lee Lockwood is asking in the chat, what was Trevor Aylott like to have as a teammate?
I was a good lad, Trevor. He was a decent player, big, strong lad. Held the ball up well. Yeah. No, he was a good player. Trevor, good player.
And while we're talking about ex-players, sadly, people pass away all the time. But we remembered yesterday, didn't we? At the beginning of the game, we should have said this probably at the top of the show. I think Nigel, you might have a slide there for us. We remembered our own, those that lost their lives in 2024, and of course at the beginning, quite a few players' names went through. Peter Wall, I noticed. And a couple of others we lost in 2024. So,
I didn't realise one of them, Phil Hoadley, had died. I knew most of them that died. Peter Wall, I actually, as a kid, been with the first team squad. I shared a room with him. He was a lovely guy, Peter.
And Phil Hoadley, he was one of the youngest members of the squad at the time, wasn't he, in the sort of early 70s?
When I got there, he was about 16, I think.
Yeah.
He must have been just slightly older, but he was playing in the first team.
Yeah. But he was remembering him being 16. Yeah. Anyway, so it's always a bittersweet memories when things like that happen, when we remember those that passed away yesterday. But then the other game that's mentioned in the programme yesterday, Jim, we just touched on this very briefly because it is FA Cup weekend next weekend, and we'll come to that shortly, was the famous 3-2 win at the Bridge in 1976. It probably didn't come much better than that, did it, as a player to win in a fixture?
They were good times under Malcolm. We kept getting drawn away from home against all the top teams. And we just kept winning. But that game at Stamford Bridge was, Peter Taylor was unbelievable. But in them days, I played left wing back.
Yes, did you?
Yeah. I was just up and down the line all day long. I didn't really. I was like a bit not as good as Munoz, but I didn't do any defending.
Brilliant.
I left it in the halves.
I can imagine you being a Munoz-like player, you know. Very good.
We are so blessed to have you as a part of our Red and Blue Review family. John Knox is actually asking you, Jim, which is your favourite away match you played in and why?
Favourite away match? Oh, it's quite hard to sort of
favourite away game.
Probably in that same FA Cup run when we played Leeds, who were the Liverpool, the Man City at the time. They were winning everything. Fabulous team, and we went there and beat them. I mean, their midfield was Billy Bremner, Johnny Giles, Clarkey up front. They were unbelievable, and we beat them 1-0. So that was quite a good game to play in.
Cool, great stuff. This is turning into a Jim Canon question and answer session, but I don't mind because we are blessed to have you on the show, mate. So I'm going to move on to the loan watch, boys, if you don't mind, where we're following some of our players that are currently out on loan. Owen Goodman and Wimbledon's match against Fleetwood was postponed again because of the heavy snowfall. Joe Whitworth played a full 90 minutes in goal for Exeter City, who lost 2-1 at home against Bolton. But Joe Whitworth got an assist, and he really did for the single Exeter goal. Danny Emery played 68 minutes for Bromley, who lost 4-1 away at Crewe Alexander. Jez Raksaki who was not part of the matchday squad for Sheffield United. Jez may return to Crystal Palace for treatment on his hamstring injury. Teo was not part of the matchday squad for Stockport. They lost at home against Mansfield 2-1. David Ozo is on loan at Derby County and he's still missing due to injury. Their manager, Peter Warne, hopes David will see out his Derby County loan for the rest of the season, but can't be 100% certain that he won't return to Crystal Palace. Now, I know that's something the manager's also mentioned and said that it's not likely to happen. He's got no plans to bring him back early. And no game for Luke Plange in Helsinki. Luke was on loan until the 1st of January 2025, and there has been no news if he's going to return to Crystal Palace. Two players that have returned from loan are Malcolm Ebiobi, has returned to the club from his loan spell at Oxford United, and Joshan Maruthan has returned to Palace from Hartlepool United. So that's two. Now, I wanted to, boys, if you don't mind, go on, Ian.
Yeah, can I just come in there just while we're talking about loan watch? Danny Imre, I think he's been pulling up trees for Bromley in League Two, by the way. He's been playing really well. Now, am I right in saying he's moving on to Wickham for the second half of the season, who are riding high at the top of League One? So if that's the case, that's a really good move for him in as much as it takes him up another level. And Wickham Wanderers have never played, I don't think, in the Championship in the second tier, but they're top of League One at the moment. And I think he's due to join them. Can anyone correct or corroborate that?
I would guess that's one for Paul Bristow down in the West Country. I'm sure he'll come back and give us an idea. I was just going back to that Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge. That's 3-2. Somebody just said in the chat he was there. Can't remember your name. Forgive me. I didn't see your name go through.
I was there. I went to it.
So was I. That was a cracking day. And talking about, I want to move on to the transfer window. Obviously, the transfer window is now open. Jim, from your perspective, ex-pro and all the rest of it, I've got a list of players that we have been linked with so far. Nothing concrete, apart from the Liverpool guy that I'll come on to in a minute. What do you think we're missing? What do you think we need in this window as a matter of urgency?
Left-sided wing-back. I think Tyrant Mitchell struggles a bit in that position. His distribution, he goes back a lot as well. You know, he's got space in front of him. And if it's Munoz, if he's got 40 yards, he'll carry it 40 yards into there, and then he might check back. But Tyrant seems to just carry it a couple of yards, check back, knock it inside, or back to one of the centre halves. So I think just to give him a little bit more competition, because I think maybe at the moment it's a little bit easy for him, because in theory he knows he's probably going to, unless he's a nightmare, he's going to play every week. And I think sometimes you just need another player with the same capabilities as you to actually push you to a point where you think, well, I've got to do more to keep getting a game in this team. So I'd like to see that. I mean, I would say another centre forward, but then we've spent 30 million on Nketiah. then I don't know how that's going to work out, because at the moment he's lost soul. I mean, if you take Mateta out, you can't play him up as an out-and-out striker, because the way we play, we do need the big guy up there to hold it up. And at the moment, his actual hold-up play is better than it's ever been. Mateta, he's bringing people into the game. And the great thing about it, he's got Sarr, who's willing to run in behind all day long. So them two, along with Munoz on the right, really work together, all three of them. So I would say a centre forward, but then what does that go with Nketiah? I'd like to see maybe a left-sided player. You know, we haven't really got anybody that plays wide on the left. Sarr more works down the right. So a player like Sarr that can move about a little bit, but can play wide on the left. Other than that, I think
I would agree. Sorry, now I agree with you, Jim, around the left wing back. I think that's got to be a priority. I thought Mitchell, someone said in the chat there, they thought he had a good game yesterday. I thought he was okay yesterday, but he doesn't impress me much at the moment, Tyrick Mitchell, left wing back. He tends to play the ball the way he's facing. So if he gets it and he's facing towards our goal, he always plays it back. He hasn't got the ability to turn and go past people like Munoz can, or create space like Munoz does. He doesn't see those spaces. He does get forward occasionally, gets balls across, but he's much better as a left back than he is a left wing back.
Yeah.
And you know, all right, fair play to Glasner for playing him in there. And he's not done anything terrible or anything, but he's not as good as Munoz, nowhere near. And if you compared him with someone like Kirkes at Bournemouth or Robinson at Fulham, both of those players are head and shoulders above him as a wing back. Much better.
Richard Young's asking the question, is there any news on Adam Morton? The manager did touch on this in his pre-Chelsea match press conference. It's getting further and further away. He did come back. He then broke down in training, and I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. I'll be very surprised if he's back anytime in January, and I think even February is looking quite optimistic. Tim, what do you think we need?
I pretty much agree with Jim and Ian. Nketiah worries me because he really can only play as a top two, and Glasner patently doesn't want to play that way. So it's a case of you'd have to drop Sarr or someone like that to play him. Well, you're not going to do that at the moment. So we're limited to the funds we've got, the kind of player that we can go out and buy. But I'd love to see Nketiah succeed. I'd love to see him get more game time. But that means Glasner would have to change his formation, which he doesn't look like he's going to do. So I wonder who wanted Nketiah? Was this one of those purchases that the manager didn't really want?
Yeah,
I think he's a useful addition, you know, and he was used to coming off the bench at Arsenal, wasn't he? And he played most of his minutes off the bench at Arsenal. It looks like he should have played most of his minutes for us off the bench, and I think that's okay if he's happy with that, and we're happy with that, and he does a job for the squad. You know, we're always saying we haven't got enough strength in depth. Well, he is a player that you can trust off the bench, you know, and maybe you don't play two up top for most of the game, but you could switch it for the last 10, 15 minutes and mix it up a bit. And as I said during the match report, you know, that header that he flicked on, great header, really good. The goal he scored at Arsenal in the League Cup, what a goal that was, the header, fantastic. So, you know, we know he's got that in his locker, and I think he will score goals, but he's going to be patient, and he's not going to start, and I think we know. But he's your centre forward, backup, if you like, for Jean-Philippe Mateta.
I think the other interesting one, somebody mentioned it in the chat a minute ago, is don't forget, we also have somebody called young Franca back in training, and he hasn't broken down yet. And will he feature? He'll be like a new signing if he can get. Let's face it, he's hardly kicked a ball in the last 12 months, so it will take him a while to get back up to any sort of match fitness. And if we get a little cup run coming, maybe he will feature. And the other one that nobody's mentioned, of course, is a certain Odsonne Edouard, who clearly the manager doesn't fancy, Glasner doesn't fancy, but he's coming back from Leicester because he didn't feature for them at all. So maybe he's your backup striker, gentlemen. You know, maybe he can do a job during the cup run. And I can see Tim sitting there shaking his head. I must thank Tom Clark-Samuel for compiling this list. As my light goes out again, Tom Clark Samuel, thank you for compiling this list. Nigel, I don't know if you got a version of this transfer interest on to put up on screen for people to see, but I think the most important one of all so far is Ben Doak. He's a winger for Liverpool. Jim just touched on the fact that we need a winger on the other side. Now, this guy is, I believe, again, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I haven't researched this, so forgive me if I get this wrong. I believe he's currently on loan at Middlesbrough, and he's doing well at Middlesbrough. He's putting up trees at Middlesbrough, and he's on a season-long loan at Middlesbrough. Okay, and that would mean that Liverpool have to recall him, okay, in January for us to make a permanent sign for. Thank you, Nigel. That's the one. So Liverpool would have to recall him from Borough for us to make a permanent signing from him. Good player, from what I understand. Another winger that we've been featured with is Roman Esse from Millwall. Again, another one for the future. One, it looks like a potential from a Dougie potential signing. I don't know much about Man City's Jason McAtee. Ian, do you know much about Jason McAtee?
James McAtee, it says there. What's his name?
James McAtee. I think Jason McAtee.
James McAtee, he did play for City the other day. I think he's, from what I've heard, he's prepared to stay and fight for his place at City. But he's a young, talented, classy footballer, come through their academy, I think. As Roman Esse at Millwall is a similar kind of sort of hunting ground, as you'd say, a Michael Elise or an Eberechi Eze from the Championship, upper level, someone that's got lots of ability. One name that isn't on there that we've talked about before, and it's been linked on social media I've seen today, is Joe Bellingham. Joe Bellingham's brother, who's at Sunderland. And that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because clearly he's got some ability as well, and he's doing well. He gets picked by Sunderland, I think, most games. So he's another name to throw in there. But the boy at Liverpool, we have put a bid in of 15 million. That's been discarded, turned down already, and I think they want 25 million. I don't think 25 million for a player that isn't proven at all. All right, okay, on loan in the Championship maybe, but I can't see him getting into our first team at the moment. I just think maybe that's a bridge too far. But anyway, they've turned it down for now, and Ipswich are also interested. Chalobah is another one that we probably ought to try and sign at the end of the year. There's rumour that Chelsea want Chalobah back in the January window, but I don't think there's a break clause in that, so I think we're allowed to keep him, from what I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned Joe Bellingham. I know, and Daniel's mentioned it in the chat, we were certainly in for Joe Bellingham in the last transfer window, and he turned us down. I'm always reluctant to go back to somebody who's already blatantly turned us down. I mean, the guy's obviously got a future. He's not going to be to his brother's standard. I realise that, but he certainly has potential, and he's having a good season. Now, you're going to have to forgive me for a couple of my pronunciations on a couple of the other names that we've got here. We've got another Maxence. Okay, we've already got Lacroix. This is Kakare, I believe, from Lyon, and there seems to be a Texter link here, and he is a defensive midfielder. And here we go. We've got El Hadji Malik Diouf from Slavia Prague, a left back. Okay, well, we don't want a left back. We want a left, basically a left winger, don't we? And I don't know anything about this Benfica guy. Jean-Nicolas Bessie. I heard Hopkins, Dan Cook talking about him the other day. Again, he's another left back. And Rav de Berg, okay, from Middlesbrough, who's a centre back. Why would we need to be going in for another centre back? That I have no idea, because we are quite blessed in that position at the moment. So and of course, we've also mentioned Adam Walton. Gels mentioned Adam Walton again. Very, very interesting that when he comes back, that'll be like a fresh signing as well. One player linked to be going out, and I actually heard about this from a friend of the show. I won't name her name because she doesn't want me to tell you who it was Jeffrey Schlupp going up to Blackburn Rovers. And I saw it actually announced today in the papers that is it John Eustace? Is it John Eustace, Jim, who's their manager? You must have played with John Eustace, I would have thought, against him. He's the current Blackburn manager. He's one that Jeffrey Schlupp, he's very keen on taking Jeffrey Schlupp on a permanent. How would you feel about that, Tim?
I like Schlupp. He's done really well for us, but yeah, maybe it's time for him to move on. We've got other players. He's never really let us down. He scored some cracking goals for us, but it frees up wages for a player that could probably do better for us.
It's another Jordan Ayew situation, really, isn't it? If the money's right, then we'll take the money and run. Really, he's been a good servant, but he's not good enough for our first 11 anymore. And arguably, when everyone's fit, he's not going to get. He might get last place on the bench or something. So he's one that could be released, Jeffrey Schlupp. And I think loan to the end of the season with a view to buy would probably be the most sensible route for Schlupp.
And also, Fat Frank was interested in signing Rob Holding. And thank you for reminding me, whoever that was in the chat a second ago. I saw that going. It's Pete Bradley mentioned it in the chat. Rob Holding. Now Rob Holding. Talk to me about Rob Holding. He's clearly fallen out with Glasner and the rest of them. He wouldn't be a loss, would he? He's on quite big money and social.
Not at all. He'd probably come about 10th position for the back. He's not. I think I can't even remember him playing any games. Played the odd game or come on as a sub, or might have played in a cup game, but it wasn't a good buy. And he's done nothing. He's certainly not going to get a game at any time. Whether he's fallen out with Glasner or not, I'm not sure. But when I've seen him play, he looked very average. Like when you look at the back three that we've got, he's miles behind any of them and playing regular Premiership football, certainly for us. But just going back to your loan players, the one player that I would, I don't know, majority of them, but that McAtee, I watched him last year at Sheffield United, and he's ideal for what we need in the middle of the park. He's a ball carrier. He can take people on, and he's an industrious, one of them players, 90 minutes, always on the move. And I think it was one of the Man City players, because he played last week. I don't know if he played yesterday, but was raving about him. Said he was absolutely outstanding. But so saying that, he probably won't be going anywhere. But yeah, he would be a player. Midfield. We do need a midfield player that can carry the ball and get behind people. At the moment, we haven't got that.
Paul Grant says Jim Canon will be better player than Rob Holding. So there we go. Rob Holding, yeah. I think there's a queue of people waiting to drive him at Coventry. Yeah, he needs to go, doesn't he? I think Championship's probably his level. Bless him.
Right. So, anything else we want to talk about on the transfer window before we move on to the upcoming fixtures?
Well, only to say that let's hope we get the business done early, because too many windows. There have been players that have come in the last few days and they haven't been registered in time to play in the next game and all this kind of stuff. Surely if we know who we want and we've been thinking about it and we've approached them, then it needs to be done this next week, doesn't it? I'd like to see that.
Well, Paul Gear in the chat has just made a comment. He says he finds it interesting that publicly, and that was at the news conference the other day, Glasner has actually committed, said the board have committed to two players in. I've just given you a list of 7 or 8 that we've been linked with. We don't obviously know any of those are true, but it's as though Glasner is actually putting the board under pressure, saying this is what we're going to have, a minimum of 2 coming in. Plus, we've got some loans coming back, and of course, some fitness issues coming back as well. So the second half of the season, bear in mind, I don't think we're playing particularly badly at the moment. I think the second half of the season, we should feel quite optimistic. I don't think we're going to be tearing up windows, trees like we did back in the last season, but we're in a decent position. Right, upcoming fixtures, please, Nigel. Those of you that are in the various chats connected with Red and Blue Review will know that we put out some post earlier on today, and we asked you for your points predictions over the next 5 league games. Okay, but what we'll do is we'll give you the result of the last 4, and the last 4 that we asked you for was Palace, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Bournemouth against Palace, Palace against Southampton, and the Chelsea game. And what was your predictions and where did you come? Well, on this page that's coming up right now, and there it is. There is your answer to the question. So the only people that actually got it spot on were Max03 on 5 points, Ian Lyons on 5 points, Mukta, well done Mukta, on 5 points, and Nigel Croucher 5 points. Yes, I purposely missed the other one. Tim Richards also got it correct, but we'll gloss over that. So there's your name. Jim Cannon, you said 8. Jill said 8. Greg said 12. He's mad. Okay, what did I say? I was 6. I was only 1 point out. So what we want now from you, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already entered this on our different socials, okay, we would like to know. Now, you're seeing on the screen there's 6 games because obviously the first game is the cup game on Sunday against Stockport, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. But there may also be, and Ian quite rightly informed me that there may well be, if we're successful against Stockport on Sunday, there may be another cup game sandwiched. Am I right in saying in between the Man United and the Everton games?
Yeah, the weekend of the 8th and 9th of February is the 4th round of the FA Cup.
Thank you for covering me while I coughed. I appreciate that. So we would like to know your predictions, please. Okay, again, away at Leicester, away at West Ham. Okay, home to Brentford, away at Man United. Anybody could beat Man United. And home at Everton. What do you think? Where are we going to go with those? And straight away, Daniel saying 15 points for the taking. Daniel, for goodness sake. Lee saying 10 points. Tom Clark Samuel saying 12 points. Rob Donovan saying 6. Paul saying 9. And Mukta again. Listen to Mukta. He knows what he's talking about. Mukta, you got it absolutely spot on last time. So I'll go with your lead, 9 points. I can see them all coming through on there now. Okay, gentlemen, over to you. We'll start. Ian Noble, you first.
Yeah, I said 11 points earlier in a group chat we were in, so I'll stick with that. But what worries me is I'm agreeing with Jill Holiak with that, which doesn't happen that often. But I can see us getting, 3 wins, 2 draws is what I'm looking at out of those games. No defeats. Very optimistic, glass half full. 3
wins, 2 draws. Jim Cannon, your thoughts?
I'll go with 8 points.
Yeah, I think that's probably more sensible sort of thing. Tim Richards.
That's what I was going to say. 8 points.
8 points. Right, okay. So Stephen Dyer agrees with you. Damon, good evening, Damo. I hope you and the family are well, mate. He's saying 10 points. Mark saying 13 points. Really, Mark? Dave Campion is saying 9 or 10. You can't have either or, mate. Okay, you can't. You might as well say Palace Brighton. Okay, Phillips. Good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Lovely to meet you the other night down at Brighton. He's saying 6 points. So there you go. Right. So I think what we'll do, Nigel, if you could take that down, I'll be very grateful. Nigel, are you there? Nigel, there you go. Thanks very much, boys. I think it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to leave you guys in peace. Jimbo, do you know how proud we are to have you as part of the team?
Yes.
And you do know? Oh, right, okay. Because by the way, you're back on again next Sunday. Did you know?
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
So, sorry, I beg your pardon. Make that next Monday. Obviously,
next
the
Monday.
game's on Sunday. The Stockport game, ladies and gentlemen, for those that you don't know, Stockport have sold their allocation out completely for next weekend. Okay, and they've actually come back to the club for a further allocation. And I understand Palace have given them another 500 seats. So very generous of them. So that'll take their allocation up to 4,500, is my understanding. Ian?
Yeah, it'd be like Hartlepool all over again, would it? Hopefully, So hopefully,
and Grimsby.
Another good, and Grimsby, yeah. And I'm sorry to sort of pick this up, but actually that graphic is wrong. It's Monday, the 13th of January, the next show. Of course, it's not tomorrow, which is what it says on the graphic.
Yeah, sack the producer, mate. I've been planning on doing that. I've been planning on doing that anyway.
Oh, he shut him up. That's quite funny.
Right, listen. Did he just cut me off?
He cut you off in your prime because you were slating him. Listen, producer guy has got the power to cut anyone off at any time. But I'll tell you what, next week's show, it's you, Nick. I'm not on next week. Nick and Jim and Yasmin, you're on because you always wanted to be on with Jim. So now's your chance next week, Yas. You'll enjoy Yaz's company. She's got her voice back, by the way, guys. I think you were a bit mean to her last weekend. She had to sort of croak her way through the show, but she's got her voice back now.
She's got her voice back. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out next Monday. Tim Richards, once again, and Nikki from the club. I really appreciate the invitation yesterday. We had a lovely day, and I'd love to do that again. And lovely to meet you and all your rest of the hard-working Fab scene. Brilliant job you're doing. Jim, see you next week, mate. See you next Monday. Ian, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen out in Facebook and YouTube land, on behalf of myself and the rest of the team, I wish you a safe week, and I'll see you next Monday. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.